Welcome to the Cheating and Love Tales channel. It was all for love. That's the thought that echoed in my head the moment I saw morning light drifting across a face that no longer looked like my wife's. I stood in the doorway, heart pounding, arms rigid at my sides, watching the soft sunlight reveal the tangled silhouettes on our bed. Hers and his. It felt like the air in the room turned solid, pressing in on my chest, making it difficult to breathe. My vision blurred at the edges. I thought I might pass out or wake up from the worst nightmare I'd ever had. But it was real. Her name is Rebecca, my wife of nearly 10 years. The man was Miguel Alvarez, her dance instructor. And me, standing there like a fool, is David Henderson, a project manager from just outside Chicago, the guy who's always believed in loyalty and family. I'm the man who paid the mortgage on this house, who replaced the shingles on the roof and fixed the broken washing machine last summer, who believed that we were a solid couple working toward a shared dream. Now I was staring at the dream's twisted wreckage, my gut cramping with betrayal. Becky stirred, and the sheet slipped down her shoulder, exposing more skin than any other man had a right to see. Miguel flinched awake, blinking in the glow, his arms still flung across her waist. For half a second, they looked like a scene from some cheap romance. Then Becky's eyes snapped open. She saw me. A gasp ripped out of her throat, and she jerked upright. Miguel scrambled back in panic, tangling himself in the bedding. The swirl of movement, the rustle of sheets, hammered home the reality of what I was seeing. Adrenaline set every nerve on fire. My arms shook. My chest felt caged in iron, the pain radiating up into my shoulders. "David," Becky croaked, reaching out to me. I didn't speak. My eyes burned, locked on her bare shoulders, his bare torso, the evidence of their intimacy stinging more than words ever could. Part of me wanted to smash a fist into the wall. Another part of me felt as if someone had driven a blade under my ribs, twisting it. I took one shaky breath and forced my voice out. "Get out." I didn't even know who I was talking to. Him or both. My voice came out low, raw. She started to say something, but the words stuck in her throat. Miguel launched himself out of bed, grabbing the clothes he'd strewn across the floor. I could see the panic in his eyes. He knew he'd crossed a line you can't uncross. He tried to speak, but I gave one curt shake of my head. "Not a word," I hissed. He nodded, ashamed or terrified, and shoved his legs into his jeans. The entire time, Becky stayed on the bed, covering herself with a sheet, tears already welling in her eyes. She looked so vulnerable, I wanted to believe this was some insane mistake. But the images were too vivid. Her hair fanned out on his chest, the hint of sweat on their skin, the smell of sex in my bedroom. In less than a minute, Miguel was half-dressed and stumbling past me down the hall. I could hear his unsteady steps on the stairs. The front door banged, leaving Becky and me in a stifling silence. Her breathing sounded ragged, and tears streaked her cheeks. I stayed put in the doorway, my whole body trembling with anger. She clutched the sheet to her chest, chin quivering. When she finally found her voice, it was a broken whisper. "David, please, let me explain." I almost laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "Explain what?" "That you decided our marriage wasn't enough. That you brought him here." A wave of nausea rose in my stomach, the pain in my shoulders intensifying. "To our bed." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "I never meant for it to get this far." My teeth ground together. "Don't apologize." "Not yet." She closed her eyes, tears leaking out from beneath her lashes. I don't know what else to say." "Then don't say anything," I said, voice cold. "I can't even look at you right now." I turned on my heel and left her there, not trusting myself to stay in that room 1 second longer. My chest felt like it was going to explode. Every breath hurt. My temples throbbed. Anger coiled inside me, hot and explosive. But beneath that was a deeper agony I could barely process. I stormed downstairs, grabbed my truck keys from the kitchen counter, and slammed the door behind me. Tires screeched as I peeled out of the driveway, leaving Becky's stricken face behind. I couldn't tell you how long I drove. 30 minutes. An hour. At some point, I pulled into a deserted parking lot near an industrial warehouse. The sun was just rising, painting the sky with a cold, gray light. I switched off the engine and stared at the cracked asphalt. My fingers shook on the steering wheel. Memories tumbled through my mind. Becky laughing in our living room. Becky playing with our son. Becky hooking her arm in mine during a friend's wedding, smiling up at me like I was the only man who mattered. And then the final blow. A flash of her bare skin pressed against another man. My stomach clenched so hard I thought I might throw up. In a daze, I pulled out my phone. No missed calls yet. Too early, maybe, or she was too ashamed to try. My heart pounded so fiercely, it felt like it might crack my rib cage. I'd never experienced betrayal like this. The physical pain was shocking, like my muscles couldn't unclench. My shoulders especially throbbed, each tendon pulled taut as a bowstring. Finally, I managed to breathe. Exhaled slowly, tried not to pass out. The little details stuck with me. The faint smell of her shampoo, the glow on her hair, the softness of the sheets, my sheets. It all hammered home the truth. This wasn't just a casual fling. It happened right in our house, in the bed we shared. Time blurred. The sky brightened into mid-morning. I glanced at the clock. My phone began to ring. Her name on the screen. I stared, then let it go to voicemail. She called again. Same result. The third time I answered. What? Her voice wavered. David, oh God. I'm so sorry. Please, come home. Let's talk. I wanted to spew fury, but only a strangled sound came out. I hung up. I started the truck again and just drove. No destination, no plan. Just put foot to gas, watched the buildings and neighborhoods flash by, and tried to numb the searing in my chest. Eventually, day turned to afternoon, and I found myself outside a dive bar I'd stopped at once before on a business trip. The battered sign flickered in the sunlight. I parked, went inside, and ordered a stiff drink. The first swallow made me grimace, but I welcomed the burn. Anything to drown out the memories. Hours might have passed. By early evening, I realized I couldn't get blind drunk. I had a job, a family, or something approximating one. Couldn't throw it all away in a single spree. So I nursed my whiskey, ignoring the bartender's concerned looks. Then I headed back to the house, not sure if I was ready to see her. When I got there, I found the place dark, except for the glow of the living room lamp. Becky was sitting on the couch, knees drawn to her chest, arms wrapped around them. She looked up as I entered, face streaked with dried tears. I'm sorry, she whispered again. David. I dropped my keys on the table, ignoring the tremor in my hands. You keep saying that like it matters. Her chin quivered. It does matter to me. I know I messed up. I need to explain. The anger in my gut flared, bright as a flash fire. But I forced myself to speak quietly. Fine. Explain. She uncurled, placed her feet on the floor, hands clasping in her lap. It started at the dance studio. I was taking lessons, and Miguel, he was so alive, so passionate about everything. I felt invisible here at home. You were always busy, always stressed. Stop blaming me, I growled. Her eyes shone with desperation. I'm not. I want you to understand why I was vulnerable. We started talking, then texting. One night he invited me for a late practice, and I stayed after. It just happened. I never planned. Bullshit, I spat, my voice echoing in the silence. You let it happen. You chose it. Don't feed me the accidental line. She bowed her head, tears dropping onto her jeans. You're right, she murmured. I chose it, and I hate myself for that. A strangled laugh tore from my throat. My shoulders throbbed, and I pressed my hand there, feeling the tension locked in my muscles. If you hate yourself, Becky, imagine how I feel. She didn't reply. The silence weighed 100 tons. I closed my eyes, exhaling the shaky breath. I could practically feel my heart pounding in my ribs. He's not staying in this house, I said quietly. She shook her head. Of course not. And I don't want you near him, I continued. If I see him around, if I catch him within a mile of this place, I might kill him. Understand? Her eyes went wide, and she nodded. I won't see him again, she whispered. I turned away, heading for the stairs. Her voice stopped me. David, please, can we try to fix this? I froze, not turning around. The question pounded in my chest. Fix this? Could I ever look at her again without picturing them tangled in each other's arms? I didn't have an answer, so I kept walking, my footsteps heavy, my shoulders burning with every movement. I didn't sleep in our bedroom that night. I ended up on the couch, staring at the ceiling until dawn. The next few days passed in a haze of avoidance. I worked long hours, leaving early, coming home late. Becky tried to talk, but I brushed her off. I buried myself in tasks, anything to keep from dwelling on the mental images that made me queasy. But something nagged at the back of my mind. Our son. We'd had him tested before because of a comment from the doctor about blood type, but Becky had always said it was a misunderstanding. Still, the suspicion lingered. In a swirl of anger, heartbreak, and the need for answers, I retested him. A modern DNA kit, quick results. I don't know if I wanted the outcome to confirm my fears or to finally let me breathe. When the results came, I held the paper in my trembling hands. Probability of paternity, 0%. My vision dimmed for a heartbeat. It was as if the room spun on its axis, and a cold sweat broke across my temples. I slumped into a kitchen chair, reading and rereading that line, unable to process the finality of those words. All the nights I'd fed him, all the Saturdays I'd taught him how to swing a plastic bat in the backyard, all the times I'd read bedtime stories, and watched him fall asleep clutching my shirt. None of it had been built on the truth. My chest ached so badly I gasped. Something snapped inside me, sending a fresh wave of pain across my shoulders, making my arms shake. Becky found me like that, hunched over the table, the test results pinned under my hand. She saw the heading. Her face went pale as a sheet. David. I lifted my head, tears burning in my eyes. I was beyond furious, beyond shattered. He's not mine, I said, my voice cracking. All this time, you let me think. She choked on a sob. I'm sorry. It was before we were officially together, but I wasn't sure who the father was. I found out after we'd already. I didn't want to lose you. Lose me? I repeated, a hollow laugh escaping. You might lose me now anyway. She crumpled, tears pouring down her face. I wanted to scream, to smash the table, to demand to know who the real father was, but it no longer mattered. The betrayal was too deep. I stood, fists clenched, ignoring the throbbing ache in my shoulders. I can't look at you, I managed. Then I grabbed my jacket and stormed out. She pleaded for me to stay, but I was halfway down the street before she finished calling my name. I spent that night at a rundown motel on the edge of town, ignoring her frantic messages. I stared at the nicotine-stained ceiling, listening to the hum of traffic outside. Sleep was impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, Miguel, and then an older memory rose up, me rocking a newborn in my arms, thinking he was my son. My vision blurred with tears I refused to shed. My chest felt so tight, I wondered if a heart can physically break. In the morning, the throbbing pain in my shoulders had intensified. I could hardly move my neck without wincing. Stress, the doctor would say. I wanted to punch a wall. Instead, I popped a couple of painkillers, forced myself to shower, and headed to the office. I found no relief there. My team asked if I was all right. Never better. I lied, teeth clenched. By noon, I had half a dozen voicemails from Becky, each more desperate than the last. I listened to the first few seconds of each, then deleted them. My chest burned, and the mental images wouldn't leave me alone. Becky in bed with Miguel, her tearful face, the paternity test. Around 2 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Miguel. I want to talk. We have to clear the air." A white-hot surge of anger ricocheted through me. Clear the air. As if we just had a misunderstanding about who left the milk out overnight. I typed a single reply. "Stay the hell away from me." He didn't respond. But my anger wouldn't let go. It bubbled under my skin, demanding an outlet. I recalled Becky's comment that he planned to leave soon, to skip off to another country for a new dance contract, or some big-shot teaching opportunity. The image of him strolling through an airport, free of consequences, made my teeth clench so hard my jaw ached. I had connections from my father's days in the police force, people who could do more than just wave a badge. Old favors, old debts. Maybe it was petty. Maybe it was insane. But I told myself it wasn't revenge. It was survival. I needed to maintain some shred of control. That evening, I made a few calls. Low-voiced conversations, coded requests. It didn't take much to have Miguel's passport renewal flagged, have his foreign travel documents revoked. Bureaucratic red tape can be vicious when it's pointed at one individual. I knew I was crossing a line, but the moment I made that final call, a cold satisfaction seeped into my veins. Let him feel trapped. Let him feel even a fraction of the helplessness tearing me apart. When I got home, Becky was waiting in the living room. She looked worn down, face pale and drawn, as if she'd spent the day crying. She stood when I entered, twisting her hands in front of her. "David, can we please?" I ignored her question, collapsing onto the couch with a heavy sigh. My shoulders practically screamed in protest, the tension so severe I had to squeeze my eyes shut. She took a tentative step closer. "Your neck. You look like you're in pain," she murmured. "Don't pretend you care." I snapped. She flinched. "I do care. You're my husband." My eyes snapped open, and a harsh laugh broke free. Funny word, husband. Means a lot less when you've screwed another man in our bed. Tears sprang to her eyes again. She sank onto the edge of the coffee table, hands clasped. For a moment, I wanted to tell her about the passport sabotage, to see her reaction, but something in me cautioned against it. Instead, I let the silence stretch. Finally, she whispered, "You disappeared last night. I was worried." I scoffed. "You lost the right to worry about me." Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked down at the rug, swallowing convulsively. I guess I deserve that. A sour taste filled my mouth. Part of me wanted to keep lashing out until I ground her into dust, but the other part was exhausted. All day, my chest had been throbbing, a constant reminder of how battered I felt. I got up without another word and climbed the stairs, leaving her hunched alone in the dark. Days dripped by in an agonizing stalemate. I told Becky nothing about my efforts to keep Miguel grounded. I brushed past her in the hallway, ate meals in silence, and spent my nights either on the couch or at a friend's place, always searching for a few hours' reprieve. My friend Joseph, an old colleague, tried to get me to open up, but I couldn't speak about it without risking an explosion of rage. Finally, the text from Miguel came again. "I need to talk to you. Please." I stared at it, the pain in my shoulders flaring as if in sync with my heartbeat. On impulse, I sent back, "Meet me behind the dance studio tomorrow night. 9 p.m., don't be late." The next day was a haze of work and raw anticipation. I could barely concentrate. My boss noticed my distraction, asked if everything was all right at home. I forced a polite smile, said I was just tired. Meanwhile, my mind churned with images of confronting Miguel. My anger simmered, bright and sharp. The memory of his arms around Becky fueled me, fueling that physical tension that gnawed at every muscle in my upper body. At 8:45 p.m., I parked behind the studio, an old brick building with a few dim security lights. My truck's headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating a patch of asphalt near the back entrance. Miguel arrived a few minutes later, in a small sedan. He stepped out, raising a hand in greeting or surrender. I couldn't tell which. I waited, leaning against my truck, letting the adrenaline build. My heart hammered. My fists tightened. The ache in my shoulders spiked, sending pulses of pain into my neck and down my arms. He approached slowly, stopping a few feet away. "David," he said, voice subdued. "Thank you for meeting me." "I didn't do it for you," I said tersely. He nodded, shoulders sagging. In the faint light, I could see the tension lining his face. "Look, man, I know you hate me right now. I don't blame you." "Hate's an understatement," I snarled. He took a breath, glanced away. "All right. I need you to understand something. Yes, Becky and I slept together. It wasn't a one-time fling, but it also wasn't some grand love affair. Okay. She was lonely. She told me you were distant, and one night after practice, Don't you dare try to justify it." I cut in, stepping closer. I could smell his cologne, faint and cloying. "She was my wife. This is my home. You had no right." He nodded, gaze dropping to the ground. "I know. I'm sorry." I almost laughed at the absurdity. Sorry. That word had lost all meaning. "Is that all? You wanted to say you're sorry. Great. You said it. Now get out of my sight." He didn't move. "I also want to leave the country, David," he said, voice tinged with desperation. "But something's blocking my passport renewal, my visas. Don't pretend you don't know what I'm talking about." My lips twitched into a grim smirk. "What makes you think it's me?" He let out a shaky breath. "Please, I'm not an idiot. I know you have connections. You're the only one who would do something like that." My chest tightened, that dull ache stirring again. "You expect me to feel bad. You thought you could just skip town, start fresh somewhere else. Leave me to pick up the pieces of your mess." He grimaced. "I made a mistake. But this is going too far, David. My career is on the line. My entire life." I leaned in, voice low and trembling with barely contained rage. "So was mine," I said. "You think I give a damn about your life after what you did?" He swallowed, stepping back. "I'm not trying to escape responsibility. But Becky, she wanted it too, man. This didn't happen because I'd forced her. You were part of the reason she felt so." Before he could finish, I lunged forward, grabbing his shirt. The pain in my shoulders flared like an inferno, but I ignored it. "Shut your mouth," I hissed. "Don't you dare blame me. Don't you dare shift your guilt onto her or me. You're both at fault." He lifted his hands in surrender, eyes wide. All right, he panted. "I'm sorry. I wasn't blaming you. I gave him a small shake, then let go, chest heaving. My fists twitched at my sides, itching to strike him. But I fought it down, jaw clenched so tight it hurt. He smoothed his shirt, warily watching me. "I'm stuck here now," he said, voice still shaking. "I can't travel for competitions, can't accept overseas contracts. My income's tanking. I'll lose everything." My lips peeled back in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Welcome to my world," I said, turning away. "We're done here." He didn't stop me. I heard him mutter, "This is insane," under his breath. But he made no move to follow as I climbed into my truck. My hand shook on the steering wheel, sweat beading on my brow. I took a deep breath. The pain in my shoulders was so intense I felt momentarily dizzy. But beneath the agony was a flicker of triumph. When I got home, the house was quiet. Becky's car was in the driveway, so I knew she was there. I entered through the front door and locked it behind me. The living room lights were on, dimly. She stood by the window, arms crossed over her chest. She'd probably seen my headlights pull in. "You went to meet him," she said, voice trembling. It wasn't a question. I shrugged, wincing at the stab of pain in my muscles. "He wanted to talk." She swallowed. "Why are you doing this?" I walked past her, heading toward the kitchen, needing water or anything to cool down the heat in my veins. Doing what? Her voice rose, cracking with desperation. Don't pretend, David. I know you've pulled strings to destroy his career, to keep him trapped here. Why? I spun around, slamming the kitchen counter with my fist. The impact jarred my aching shoulders. Why? I repeated, voice raw. Because he destroyed my life, Becky. He took everything I believed in and pissed all over it. She flinched. I did that too, she whispered. Are you going to trap me as well? A bitter laugh tore from my throat. You're already trapped by your own guilt. But maybe I should do more, huh? Maybe I should ruin your life, the way you ruined mine. Tears glistened in her eyes. She raised her hands in a pleading gesture. I understand how angry you are, but this obsession with punishing Miguel, it won't fix anything. It won't repair us, David. I let out a slow, shaky breath, my shoulders so tight they felt like cords ready to snap. I don't want to fix anything right now, I said. I want him to suffer, just like I'm suffering. She looked at me with such sorrow that it nearly cut through my anger. And me? She asked softly. Do you want me to suffer too? I hesitated. The question lingered, and in that moment, the truth was that I didn't know. Yes, part of me wanted to see her in pain, to match my own. But another part, the part that had loved her for so long, felt sick at the idea. Instead of answering, I turned away, rummaging for a glass. She came closer, voice trembling. I'm sorry, David. I love you. I never stopped loving you. The words made my chest tighten. I couldn't tell if it was anger, pain, or the faint flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, she was telling the truth. But I couldn't handle it right then. I downed a glass of water, refused to look at her, and stormed upstairs. She didn't follow. That night, I barely slept. Memories haunted me, tangling with anger and heartbreak. I tossed on the spare bed in the guest room, every muscle in my body thrumming with tension. My father once told me that betrayal was the worst sin he could imagine, because it rots the inside of a man. I never truly understood his words until now. In the morning, I woke early, took some painkillers, and forced my way through a shower. My reflection in the bathroom mirror startled me. Dark shadows under my eyes, lines of strain bracketing my mouth, my shoulders visibly knotted. I looked like a man at war, and in a sense, I was at war with my wife, with her lover, and with the life I used to treasure. Downstairs, I heard Becky moving around in the kitchen. The smell of coffee wafted through the air. I braced myself for another confrontation. But when I stepped in, she said nothing. Just slid a mug across the counter toward me. Her gaze lowered. We drank in silence. After a few minutes, she cleared her throat. Our son is with your parents, she said quietly. They asked why we haven't come by to pick him up. My stomach twisted. I'll handle it, I replied. She bit her lip. Don't blame him for this. I clenched my fist around the mug, fighting the spike of rage. He's not mine, I said, voice raw. She flinched. He still thinks of you as his father. He doesn't understand any of this. The reminder stung. He doesn't understand any of this. How could he? He's a child. An innocent, but I felt cornered, raw, and so bitter that I couldn't put words to it. Instead of responding, I set down the half-finished coffee, grabbed my keys, and left. At work, I tried to immerse myself in spreadsheets, project timelines, emails. But every 10 minutes, a wave of anger or sadness surged, making it impossible to focus. By lunchtime, I was exhausted, the ache in my shoulders reaching an almost unbearable point. My phone buzzed with a text from Becky. I'm sorry about this morning. Please come home safely. I ignored it, burying myself in meaningless tasks. But no matter how many numbers I crunched, the vision of her with Miguel haunted me. Finally, around 4, I surrendered. I left early, picked up a 6-pack of cheap beer, and headed to a small parking lot near a local park. I sat there, engine off, sipping in the silent warmth of late afternoon. The alcohol dulled the edges of my pain, physically and mentally, at least for a while. But I couldn't hide forever. By nightfall, I was back home, stumbling in with a slight buzz. Becky was waiting, wringing her hands. She took one look at me and inhaled sharply. "You've been drinking," she whispered, eyes scanning my face. "I'm not drunk," I said defensively. "Don't worry." She rubbed her temples, anxiety etched in every line of her posture. "David, this is killing you. Killing us. Can we please see a counselor? A pastor? Anyone who can help?" A sneer twisted my lips. "Help?" I echoed. "Who's going to help a man whose wife slept with someone else in his own house? A man who just found out his son isn't his?" Her eyes filled with tears again. She nodded. "I deserve your anger. But this," her voice cracked, "this constant cycle of hatred, it'll destroy you." My chest tightened, the old ache radiating out like a bruise that never heals. "Maybe I deserve to be destroyed," I said, stepping closer, my voice low. "Maybe I was fool enough to believe in you all these years." She looked up at me, tears clinging to her lashes. "I never lied about loving you. That was real." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. I don't even know what real means anymore. Days turned to weeks. We fell into a twisted routine. We lived under the same roof, avoided each other most of the time, and argued whenever we crossed paths. My parents kept our boy on weekends, oblivious to the full extent of the disaster unraveling at home. Becky tried to go about her usual routines, but I saw the strain in her eyes. She looked like a shell of the vibrant woman I once knew. And me, I felt hollow, except for the raging swirl of bitterness that refused to fade. My body was in constant pain. I visited a doctor, who told me it was stress-induced muscle tension. He suggested therapy and muscle relaxants. I swallowed the pills and dismissed the therapy suggestion, thinking, therapy's for men who can salvage something. I'm too far gone. Every so often, I'd receive another message from Miguel. "Let me leave. Please. I lost my teaching gig at the studio. I have nothing here." I almost felt pity, but it was drowned by resentment. I never responded, and each time my phone dinged, my fury spiked all over again. Late one night, I found Becky in the living room, gazing at old photos. She was hunched over an album, tears silently streaming down her face. I froze in the doorway, unsure whether to walk away or confront her. Eventually, my anger gave way to curiosity. I stepped inside, clearing my throat. She turned, startled, and slammed the album shut. I saw a photo of our wedding day peeking out from beneath the cover. "What are you doing?" I asked, my tone guarded. She sniffled, wiping her cheeks. "I was looking at the past, trying to remember. A time when we were happy." My heart gave a painful jolt. "Why torture yourself?" She swallowed. "Because I can't stand living in this constant darkness. I want to remember that we loved each other, that we weren't always like this." I sank onto the armchair opposite her, feeling the ache in my neck. "Yeah. Well, that was before you decided to throw it all away." Her face contorted with guilt. "I know." She hesitated, then opened the album to a page of photos from our honeymoon, a sunlit beach, her hair blowing in the wind, me smiling like a fool beside her. "Look at us," she whispered, tapping the picture. "I want to tell these two people to hold on, to never let go." I stared, chest tightening. Memories flooded in, how I carried her over the threshold, how we drank cheap champagne while watching the sunset. I'd been so sure we had a lifetime together. Something clenched in my throat. She read my expression, tears sparkling on her eyelashes. "David, I wish I could take it all back. I wish I could give you what you deserve." My eyes burned. I didn't trust my voice, so I stayed silent. The old wounds felt raw, scraping my insides with every breath. Slowly, she shut the album. We sat there in thick silence until finally I got up and walked away, the tension in my shoulders flaring again. A few more weeks passed, the days blending into a blur of bitterness, half-hearted attempts at civility, and raw tension. I remained determined to keep Miguel locked down, pinned under the red tape I'd orchestrated. My father's old friends occasionally called, warning me not to escalate. I told them I had it under control, though in truth, I was losing control of everything else. One evening, I was in my makeshift office at home, flipping through old bills, half-heartedly searching for the means to keep up with the mortgage while also contemplating a separation. Becky knocked softly on the door. "Come in," I said, not looking up. She stepped inside, arms crossed over her chest. She wore a simple t-shirt and jeans, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. For a moment, I remembered how that used to make my heart skip. A casual, natural beauty. Now it just reminded me of what I'd lost. I was thinking, maybe we should get away, she said softly. Just for a day or two. Somewhere neutral, where we can talk without all these ghosts. I set the papers aside, studying her face. Why? Because living like strangers under the same roof is killing us, she replied. And I keep hoping we might find a path forward, if not for us, then for the boy. Pain seared my chest. He's not my son, I said automatically, but the words felt hollow now. The truth was, my heart still recognized him as mine, even if biology disagreed. Besides, I added more quietly, I can't just pretend everything's fine. She shook her head, biting her lip. I'm not asking you to pretend. I'm asking you to let yourself feel something besides anger. My jaw tightened. Easier said than done. She moved closer, so close I could smell her shampoo, the faint floral scent that used to comfort me. Let me help you, she whispered, tears threatening. Let me do something right for once. I stared at the papers on my desk, trying to ignore the wave of emotion rising in me. You want to go somewhere, talk? Fine. But no promises. She nodded quickly, relief flickering in her eyes. Of course. No promises. We ended up renting a small cabin by a lake, not far from the city but secluded enough to feel like an escape. The irony struck me. A romantic getaway for a couple on the verge of collapse. We drove separately. I didn't want to spend 2 hours in the car with her. When I arrived, the late afternoon sun glimmered on the water, painting the cabin's weathered boards in gold light. I parked and stepped out, wincing at the familiar ache in my shoulders. Becky's car was next to mine. She stood by the trunk, retrieving a small suitcase. Our eyes met, and we exchanged a tense nod. I grabbed my bag, followed her inside. The cabin was tiny, one main room with a kitchenette, a small bedroom off to the side, and a screened porch overlooking the lake. The air smelled of pine and dust. I set my bag down, noticing a single bed in the bedroom. Becky hesitated in the doorway. I'll sleep on the couch, I said gruffly, not meeting her gaze. She nodded. I'll get some groceries later. Maybe we can grill something. I shrugged, feeling uncomfortable. Yeah, sure. The tension between us was thick enough to taste. The last time we'd been anywhere similar was years ago, a simpler time when we'd hold hands and share quiet laughs. Now we were like wary strangers. We spent the first few hours avoiding real conversation. Becky busied herself wiping down surfaces, opening windows to let fresh air in. I sat on the porch, staring at the lake, trying to wrestle the anger that churned in my gut. My phone buzzed a few times. Work emails, presumably. I ignored them. When dusk fell, Becky lit a small fire in the outdoor pit, grilled some burgers. We ate in near silence, the crackle of flames filling the space. Eventually, she cleared her throat. Remember that time we went camping near the Rockies? She said softly, gaze distant. We almost got lost on a hike, and we were so scared. But at night, we just held each other until we fell asleep. I clenched my jaw, the memory stirring a dull ache in my chest. Yeah, I replied, voice clipped. She swallowed. I keep thinking how safe I felt that night, even though we were miles from civilization. Because you were with me. Because I trusted you. Bitterness twisted inside me. Trust, I echoed. It's a valuable commodity. She closed her eyes, nodding. I know I threw it away, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Silence stretched. I shifted, wincing at the persistent tension in my back. Why did you do it, Becky? I asked suddenly, my voice barely more than a whisper. The truth. Spare me the "I was lonely" excuse. Tell me what was going through your head when you decided to cross that line. She took a shaky breath. I think I got scared, she said, tears glistening. Scared that our life was turning into a routine. You were always working, always worrying about the future, and I felt like we'd lost the spark. So when Miguel showed me attention, excitement, passion, I felt alive again. And I was too selfish to stop it. My stomach clenched, a flare of anger blending with deep hurt. So you sold out everything we had for a cheap thrill. She nodded miserably, tears slipping down her cheeks. Yes, I did. And I can't ever make it right. But God, David, if I could go back. I stared at the fire, the logs shifting and spitting embers into the night air. My shoulders tightened, sending a pulse of pain across my upper back. You know what hurts the most? I said quietly. I still love you, even after all this, and it tears me apart. She let out a sob, covering her mouth with her hand. I love you too, she managed through her tears. I never stopped. I was so stupid, David. I didn't reply. Instead, I stood up, walked a few steps away, staring at the dark silhouette of pines. A swirl of emotions battered at my mind. Anger, heartbreak, longing. The physical ache in my body never let me forget how deep the betrayal cut. Later that night, I found myself alone on the porch while Becky washed dishes in the tiny kitchen. The sky was clear, stars scattered like salt across black velvet. A breeze stirred the trees, carrying the scent of pine. I tried to breathe, to calm the swirling storm inside me. Eventually, Becky emerged, drying her hands on a towel. There's hot water for a shower, she said softly. I nodded, not moving. She hesitated. David, we came here to talk. You can ask me anything, and I'll give you the truth, no matter how much it hurts. A bitter chuckle escaped me. I already know enough truth to kill me. She swallowed. Then, maybe tell me what you need from me. I turned, leaning on the railing. She stood there with tears in her eyes, but also a quiet determination. I don't know what I need, I said. Some days, I want you gone. Other days, I can't imagine life without you. I'm so angry, Becky. Angry at you, angry at him, angry at myself for not seeing it coming. Her voice trembled. I know, and I'm sorry. An awkward silence hung between us. Then she said, I'm going to bed. Good night. She turned away, and I watched her go, my heart pounding. She paused at the door, looking back at me, a question in her eyes. Did I want to talk more, or walk away? I gave a slight shake of my head, and she went inside, leaving me alone with the night and my thoughts. I eventually slept on the couch, drifting in and out of restless dreams. In one dream, I saw Becky and Miguel dancing in our living room, laughing as if I didn't exist. I woke up trembling, sweat cold on my skin. My shoulders ached. I checked the time. 3:00 a.m., no chance of real rest. In the morning, Becky made coffee, and we sipped it on the porch. The early sunlight flickered over the lake. I caught her staring at me, her gaze full of sorrow. We can go home if you want, she said, her tone gentle. I don't want to force you to be here. I stared at the still water. No, we'll stay for now. Maybe later, we can talk. She nodded, relief crossing her features. We spent the morning in a tense truce, tidying the cabin, taking a short walk through the pines, not speaking much. My shoulders gradually relaxed, just a notch. I felt a hint of something that might have been peace, if not for the memories haunting me. After lunch, Becky suggested we sit on the porch and try to be honest with each other. No more holding back. I reluctantly agreed, because I was tired of carrying the anger without any place to put it. She perched on the edge of a rocking chair, feet barely touching the floor. I leaned against the railing, arms crossed. A faint breeze rustled the needles overhead. "I don't know where to start," she admitted. I sighed. "Tell me the truth about you and Miguel." "All of it." She took a shaky breath. "We've been seeing each other for a few months. I had a feeling it was wrong, obviously, but I couldn't stop. It was exciting. He made me feel special, desired, and I hated myself every time I came home, because I knew I was lying to you." A wave of sickness rolled through me. "Where else did you do it?" I asked, voice tight. "Besides our bed." She closed her eyes, tears gathering. "His apartment. Once in the back room at the studio." I swallowed a surge of rage, my neck muscles seizing up. "I see." She hurried on, voice trembling. "It wasn't always about the sex. Sometimes we just talked or danced. But yes, we slept together more than once. It ended the morning you found us. I swear, I haven't seen him since." I inhaled slowly, fighting the storm inside. "And you expect me to forgive you?" A sob caught in her throat. "I expect nothing, but I'm begging for a chance." I couldn't speak. My shoulders tensed so hard that a spasm of pain shot down my arms. Gritting my teeth, I forced myself to take slow breaths. I saw her eyes flick to my posture, concern lining her face. "Are you hurt?" she asked softly. "It's fine," I muttered. She set a trembling hand on the arm of the chair. "David, you're going to wreck yourself with this anger." I glared at her. "And whose fault is that?" She didn't answer. Tears slipped down her cheeks, and she bowed her head. My own chest felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. I wanted to scream, to smash something, but I forced myself to stand there, knuckles white against my arms. After a minute, I cleared my throat. "Why'd you lie about our son?" Her eyes widened, fresh guilt pouring in. "I suspected it wasn't yours from the beginning," she admitted. "But the other guy bailed on me, and I was terrified of being a single mom. Then you proposed, and it felt like fate. So I kept quiet." My breathing turned shallow, a new wave of anguish ripping through me. "I've loved him like my own, Becky," I said, voice trembling. "You'd let me believe." She sobbed, covering her face. "I know. I'm so sorry. I didn't think it would matter because you were such a good father, and he adores you. I thought maybe, in the end, the truth wouldn't matter." A hollow laugh escaped me. "You were wrong." She nodded, tears streaming. I stared at the lake, blinked back the moisture in my own eyes. The breeze felt too cold against my skin, or maybe I was just shaking from the inside out. That afternoon, we took a break from talking. Becky went for a short walk, and I stayed behind, nursing my swirling emotions. I wanted to run, to hide, but something about the quiet of the place compelled me to stay. As the sun dipped, we found ourselves sitting on the dock, watching the reflection of the sky and water. She sat a few feet away, not touching me, letting the space between us breathe. I kept my gaze forward. "Do you remember the first time we said, 'I love you'?" she asked softly. A dozen memories clashed in my mind, but that one stood out. I nodded. "We were in college, standing by that old oak tree after class. You were wearing a red sweater." She smiled through tears. "I was so nervous. I blurted it out, and you just stared for the longest time. Then you took my hands and said, 'I love you too, Becky. Always will.'" I swallowed hard. Yeah, that was a promise. She reached out, her hand hesitating inches from mine. "I broke it," she whispered. "But maybe I can spend the rest of my life trying to fix it." A lump clogged my throat. Part of me wanted to squeeze her hand, to find solace in her touch, but the memory of her with Miguel froze me in place. I withdrew my hand. She swallowed, her tears falling silently into the lake. That night, I lay awake on the couch again, arms folded behind my head, staring at the ceiling. My phone vibrated on the coffee table, and I knew who it was before I checked. Miguel, once again. I'm sorry. Please, release my paperwork. I beg you. I almost blocked his number, but a twisted sense of satisfaction stopped me. Let him beg. A door creaked, and Becky emerged from the bedroom, wearing a long t-shirt, hair rumpled from tossing and turning. She paused at the edge of the couch. "David," she murmured. "I can't sleep." "Neither can I said tersely. She shifted, her bare feet curling against the wooden floor. "I know I'm the last person who should ask, but will you talk to me? Please." I sighed, rolling onto my side to see her better. Her eyes glistened, that heartbreakingly familiar expression stirring a pang in my chest. "Fine," I said. "Talk." She perched on the edge of the coffee table, close enough that I could smell the faint soap on her skin. "I'm afraid," she said, voice small. "Of what?" "That you'll never forgive me," she whispered. "That you'll leave, and I'll lose everything we built together." A bitter smile tugged at my lips. "We didn't build this. It was built on lies." She swallowed hard. "Not everything was a lie. My feelings for you were real. I never faked that." Tension twisted my stomach. I rubbed my brow, feeling the tightness spread back into my shoulders. "I don't know how to believe you anymore, Becky. It's like every memory we share is tainted." She nodded, tears shining. "I know, and I don't expect you to snap your fingers and forgive me. But I hope, maybe with time, we can find a way back. Even if it's not the same, we could rebuild something new." A flicker of pain jolted through my neck. "That's a pretty thought, but I don't see how." She reached out, hesitated, then gently set a hand on my forearm. The warmth of her touch sent a conflicting surge through me, comfort and anger swirling together. "I'll do whatever it takes," she whispered. I looked at her, really looked for the first time in weeks. Her face was pale, eyes rimmed with exhaustion and regret. Her lips trembled. She looked so broken, so remorseful, that a part of me wanted to pull her close and cradle her against my chest. Another part screamed that I was betraying my own pain if I did. I inhaled sharply, forcing myself to focus. "Let's say, hypothetically, we try to fix this. It doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't erase the fact that I've spent weeks consumed by hatred." She closed her eyes, tears slipping free. "I'll carry that guilt for as long as I live, but I still want to try." My heart pounded. The room felt too small, too charged. "I can't promise anything," I repeated, voice tight. "I'm not ready to give you an answer yet." She nodded, dropping her gaze. "I understand. Thank you for even considering it." I let out a ragged breath. My shoulders throbbed again. Becky frowned, noticing my wince. "Your shoulders are still hurting." "Yeah," I muttered. "Stress." "It's fine." Without waiting for permission, she slid closer and placed her hands gently on my shoulders, pressing into the knotted muscles. The surge of pain made me hiss, but then a strange warmth followed. She started to knead the tense spots, her touch hesitant but surprisingly soothing. I wanted to pull away, but my body craved release from that agony. My eyelids fluttered shut as she massaged the knots. Slowly, the tension ebbed, replaced by a dull ache that was more bearable. "Thank you," I croaked. She nodded, tears dripping onto her thighs, but she kept massaging, letting me feel a moment of quiet relief. Neither of us spoke about the bigger issues. For that moment, we were just two people struggling to find solace in the midst of devastation. We stayed at the cabin 2 more days. We argued, we cried, we circled each other in wary attempts at forgiveness. Some moments felt almost like old times, a joke here, a shared memory there, but they were always cut short by the intrusive thought: she betrayed me. On the final morning, we packed our bags in tense silence. I looked at the bed, the faint imprint of her body in the sheets, and wondered if we ever share a bed again. My shoulders ached, but less than before. Maybe her massages helped, or maybe I was just becoming numb. Becky stood in the doorway, eyes flicking between me and the interior of the cabin. "Are we okay?" she asked softly. I let out a humorless chuckle. "No, but maybe we're a little less terrible than before." She nodded, tears brimming. "I'll take that." We drove home separately. On the way, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. The message read, "Miguel was taken to the hospital. Possible overdose. He asked for you." My stomach lurched. My first instinct was that it was some trick, but the area code was local. Another wave of anger coursed through me. Overdose. Was he looking for sympathy, or had he truly reached rock bottom? 1,000 thoughts ricocheted. By the time I pulled into our driveway, Becky was already inside, taking a call. She glanced at me with wide eyes, covering the phone's mouthpiece. "It's about Miguel," she said. "He's—" "Yeah," I interrupted, stepping past her. "I got the same message." She ended the call, face pale. "They said he nearly died. He's been struggling with depression after losing his job and being unable to travel." She swallowed. "They asked if you could come. I guess he told them you were. I don't know. The closest thing he has." I let out a bark of bitter laughter. "The closest thing. He's lost his mind." Becky's eyes were anxious, lips trembling. "David, please. Maybe this is a sign we should end this war. He's obviously in a dark place." I glared at her. "Don't expect me to feel sorry for him." She hesitated, then stepped closer, resting a hand on my arm. "I'm not defending him. But if you have any compassion left, maybe you can at least talk to him once he's stable. Let him go." The phrase hung in the air. Let him go. I'd orchestrated his entrapment out of pure rage. Now, confronted with the possibility he might die, I felt a swirl of conflicting emotions. I ended up driving to the hospital that evening. Becky wanted to come, but I told her no. This was between me and Miguel. The drive felt surreal. My anger still simmered, but it warred with a grim sense of responsibility. When I found him, he was in a small private room. IV lines snaked into his arm, and his complexion was ashen. He stared at me with hollow eyes, the shadow of a man I once confronted behind the studio. "David," he croaked. I remained by the door, arms folded. "Why'd you ask for me?" He swallowed, voice weak. I had no one else." I snorted. "That your sob story?" He shook his head. "I'm not asking for pity. I know I destroyed your marriage, or tried to. You punished me. Well, more than I ever imagined. Couldn't travel, lost my gigs, turned to pills to cope. Stupid, I know." I stared at him, a surge of guilt flickering. "I didn't make you swallow pills," I said coldly. He closed his eyes. "No, that was all me. But you and I both know you kept me trapped here, no way out. I guess I couldn't handle it anymore." A tense silence. My shoulders throbbed again, the old tension igniting. "What do you want from me?" He looked at me, tears in his eyes. "Let me go. Man, you won. You have Becky. I've lost everything. Release whatever hold you have on my passport, my visas. Let me rebuild my life somewhere else." My breath caught. 1,000 arguments rose, but then I saw the utter defeat in his face, the band around his wrist, the beep of the monitor. He was a mess. A part of me felt a twisted triumph, but another part was sick with it. Am I so far gone that I'd push a man to overdose? "What do you want me to say?" I finally asked. "Say you'll talk to your contacts. Let me leave." I closed my eyes for a second, memories pounding. Becky's betrayal, my heartbreak, my thirst for revenge. My father's voice echoed in my head, telling me not to lose my soul in the process. Eventually, I opened my eyes. "All right. I'll see what I can do." He exhaled, relief flickering across his features. "Thank you." I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. For what it's worth, David, I'm truly sorry. If I could go back, I'd never have crossed that line with Becky. My throat felt tight. I didn't reply. I left him there, an IV in his arm, a ghost of the arrogant dance instructor who once took what wasn't his. When I got home, Becky stood in the living room, wringing her hands. I could tell she was on edge. "How is he?" she asked quietly. "Alive," I said, shrugging off my jacket. "He wants out, wants me to remove the roadblocks." Her eyes flickered. "Are you going to?" I thought of his sunken cheeks, the beep of the machines. "Yes." She released a breath, tears shining. "I think that's good." I glared at her. "Don't misunderstand. I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it because I'm sick of letting him dictate my every thought." She nodded, a tear sliding down her cheek. She didn't speak, but I saw gratitude in her eyes, for me, or for some vestige of mercy that might mean we could finally move on. In the days that followed, I made the calls, reversing what I'd set in motion. The people who owed me favors grumbled, but they complied. Miguel's documents were reinstated. I heard through a mutual contact that he checked himself out of the hospital once stable, leaving with a friend's help. Meanwhile, at home, Becky and I tiptoed around each other with newfound caution. Something had shifted in me, though. My physical pain, while still present, began to ease, like a wound that finally stopped bleeding. I still felt the ache of betrayal, but the raw fury was cooling. One evening, Becky found me in the kitchen, rummaging for dinner options. She cleared her throat. "Do you want to order takeout?" "I'm too tired to cook." I shrugged. "Sure. Whatever." We settled on some Chinese place. While we waited, we sat in awkward silence at the table. Then she spoke. "So, how do you feel?" I traced the grain of the wooden table with my fingertip. "About what?" "About this. About us." My throat constricted. "I'm still angry," I admitted. "Still hurt." She bowed her head. "I understand. But I'm also tired." I continued, voice wavering slightly. "Tired of letting it consume every waking moment. I want to live again. I want to breathe without feeling this weight." She wiped at her eyes. "Me too." I sighed, looking up at her. "Look, I'm not ready to say we can fix this entirely. But maybe I'm willing to try therapy, a counselor, something." Relief washed over her features, and tears spilled again. "Thank you," she whispered. I felt an odd tightness in my chest, part pain, part cautious hope. The guilt in her eyes was genuine. The love, maybe, was still there, battered but not dead. Over the next week, we started seeing a marriage counselor. The sessions were brutal, unearthing every lie, every resentment. At times, I stormed out, rage flaring when old wounds were probed. Becky cried often, but she didn't run. She stayed, tried to face the consequences. During one particularly intense session, the counselor asked me if I still loved Becky. My reaction was visceral. My shoulders locked up, that familiar pain returning like a vice. But I managed to nod through clenched teeth. "Yes," I muttered. "I do." The counselor turned to Becky, who admitted she'd felt neglected, invisible. That none of it justified her betrayal, but it led her down a path of desperation. I couldn't stand hearing it, but part of me recognized the truth. Days passed, then weeks. Little by little, we found ways to communicate without screaming. We started talking about the future, though it was fraught with uncertainty. The biggest question, our boy. Would I stay in his life as a father figure? I wrestled with that daily. I loved him, but he was a living reminder of her lies. Eventually, we decided I wouldn't cut him off. He was innocent, and I'd raised him from birth. He'd still be a part of my life, even if everything else burned. One afternoon, Becky approached me with her phone in hand, a tremor in her voice. "Miguel texted me," she said. I stiffened, old anger stirring. "What does he want?" She read the text, eyes darting. He's leaving the country. Got a job in Spain. He just wanted to say goodbye. A storm of conflicting emotions swept through me. Part relief, part residual rage. Good, I managed. Let him go. She exhaled, shoulders sagging. I told him not to contact me again. That we're done. For good. I studied her, noticing the firm resolve in her eyes. All right, I said. Thank you. She hesitated, then gently reached for my hand. I let her take it, though my heart hammered. I want you to know, she whispered, I choose you. I always did in the end. I just lost my way. I squeezed her hand, feeling a swirl of pain and lingering love. We'll see if that's enough, I said quietly. More time passed, each day a small battle towards something that might resemble healing. My physical pain began to recede. I found myself able to move without wincing, the knots in my shoulders loosening day by day. Sometimes Becky would catch me in a moment of quiet and rub my neck gently, not speaking, just offering comfort. I still slept in a separate room for a long while. But eventually, one night, I hesitated outside our old bedroom door, heart pounding. Becky was inside, reading. I could see the soft glow of the lamp under the door. My hand hovered over the knob. Did I want to cross that threshold? Forgiveness was still a distant shore, but maybe we could inch closer. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. She looked up, surprise flickering across her features. I walked in, sat on the edge of the bed. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Then she reached out, her hand trembling, and touched my cheek. I let her. My chest felt like it might burst from the tangled mix of sadness and longing. I miss you, she whispered. My throat tightened. Slowly, I leaned down, pressing my forehead to hers. We breathed together, the air thick with unspoken grief and tentative hope. The pain in my shoulders flared, then eased, as if bracing me for a decision. Finally, I lay down beside her, not touching at first. She inched closer, her presence like an uncertain warmth in the dark. We didn't make love that night, didn't rush anything. We just lay there, side by side, feeling the distance and the closeness all at once. In the weeks and months that followed, we entered a fragile new era. Therapy became a lifeline, a place to vent and rebuild. I told Becky that trust would be the hardest thing to regain. She said she'd earn it, step by step, day by day. I started spending more time with our boy, taking him to the park, reading him stories again. Though I sometimes felt a pang remembering the DNA test, I couldn't deny the bond we'd formed over the years. The question of whether we'd survive as a couple still hung over us. Some nights we'd hold each other and cry. Other nights we'd fight over the simplest things, resentments boiling to the surface. But there was progress, faint though it was, and the physical pain that once tormented me. It never disappeared entirely, but it lessened. On good days, I could move with ease, the tension a mere whisper of its former intensity. On bad days, I'd feel it creeping in, a reminder of the betrayal that changed everything. Months later, I found myself standing on the edge of our yard at sunset, watching Becky chase our boy around with a playful laugh. My chest felt tight, but not from rage this time. More like the ache that comes when you realize how fragile happiness is, how easily it can be shattered. She glanced over her shoulder, caught my gaze, and smiled. A real, tentative smile. I managed to smile back, though the memory of her affair still hovered in the background. The difference now was that I wasn't drowning in it. I was surviving, reclaiming pieces of myself. That night, we put the boy to bed, reading him a story together. I tucked him in, feeling a surge of affection. He smiled drowsily, mumbled something about love, then drifted off. Becky and I stood there, side by side, staring down at him in the soft glow of the nightlight. When we left his room, I turned to her. I still can't promise we'll make it, I said, voice steady. But I'm trying. She nodded, tears in her eyes, and squeezed my hand. So am I. Here's the truth. I don't know where we'll end up. Maybe in another year, the pain will resurface, and I'll decide I can't live with the memory of what she did. Or maybe we'll rebuild something even stronger, scared, but still standing. I do know that I loved her once, with a devotion I never thought could be broken. And in the aftermath of her betrayal, I discovered that my love was still there, battered but alive, coexisting with anger and sorrow. Did I get my revenge? In some twisted sense, yes. I trapped Miguel, forced him to face consequences, almost drove him to an early grave. But at the end of it, I found no lasting satisfaction in his suffering, just a hollow bitterness that faded once I let him go. And so I stand at the threshold of a new chapter, torn between hope and doubt. That raw, explosive anger has simmered into something else, something that no longer dominates my every breath. I can see Becky's remorse, can feel her attempts at atonement. My physical pain, though lingering, reminds me that betrayal doesn't vanish overnight. It just scabs over, leaving a scar on the psyche. But one thing is certain. I'm not the same man who once believed our life was unbreakable. I'm older, wearier, and perhaps wiser. I know now how easily trust can crumble, how swiftly love can be betrayed. And yet, in the quiet moments, I still find a sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, we can piece together a future from the wreckage. Because in the end, everything was out of love. Broken, complicated, twisted love. And for better or worse, that love is what keeps me from walking away for good. Maybe that makes me a fool, or maybe it makes me a man who's willing to shoulder the pain and see if redemption is possible. All I can do is take it one step at a time, carrying the scars that remind me how close I came to the brink, and how, for reasons I can't fully explain, I still can't let go of her hand. I don't know if our story will continue happily or if we'll fall apart tomorrow, but I do know the moment I discovered her betrayal, something in me changed forever. I also know that despite everything, when the memories haunt me at night, I feel a pang of longing for the days when we were young and certain that love alone could carry us through. Maybe that's the real torment. The knowledge that even after all she's done, even after I exacted my form of vengeance, I still look at her sometimes and see the woman I married, the woman I can't fully stop loving. So I'll walk forward, shoulders aching, heart bruised, hoping that the future holds some measure of peace. And if it doesn't, if we shatter again, at least I'll know I tried to rebuild, tried to forgive, tried to salvage what little remains after the storm. But for now, at this very moment, I can still hear the echo of my own promise from years ago. I love you, always will. It hangs in the air, a reminder of what we once believed and what we may yet rediscover, if only we can find the strength to keep going, one painful step at a time. And just like that, the last words of this story hover on my tongue. My heart pounds, my breath catches, and I stop. Because there's no neat ending, no tidy resolution. There's only this uncertain step forward and the abrupt hush that follows, leaving us suspended in the raw silence of a love too battered to be called perfect, yet too stubborn to die.